Chapter 56 to 58, Knowledge is Power. Jaya Island. Pride remained indifferent to the growth of his bounty, as he was already significantly powerful, and it was merely a matter of time until his bounty would inevitably surge higher. He exhaled. Wouldn't it make more sense to visit other islands first, before I go to the New World? He muttered. He took a few sips of his booze. His thoughts occupied him intensely. While Luffy aims to achieve the grandiose title of King of Pirates, I lack any comparable aspirations. My primary motivation stems from a desire for retribution, whether it be for wrongs committed against me or those dear to me. In addition to seeking vengeance, another driving force for me is the thrill of adventure. I find joy in discovering new places, encountering diverse cultures, and relishing the wonders of life. Unlike Luffy, who seems obsessed with adventure, I view it as a means of experiencing the world's richness and diversity. However, I am not willing to go to the same lengths as Luffy in risking everything to achieve my objectives. It's crucial to recognize that each person has their unique aspirations and ambitions, and it's perfectly acceptable not to possess the same level of drive as someone else. There's no need to compare oneself to others or feel compelled to achieve specific objectives. Rather, the focus should be on understanding what motivates us individually and brings us joy. To summarize, my driving forces are vengeance and adventure, but I don't share the same level of ambition as Monkey D. Luffy. I strive to achieve my objectives in my unique way, free from the influence of others' goals. I have made a firm decision that I will stand by. Draco must face the consequences of his actions, and he shall perish. Seeking retribution for the wrongs he has done is of utmost importance to me, and I will not rest until justice is served. However, my drive does not end there. I am also fueled by an insatiable thirst for adventure, and I am determined to explore every corner of the world to uncover its secrets and mysteries. I am eager to immerse myself in diverse cultures and traditions, and absorb all that I encounter along the way. Despite the potential consequences of my actions, including the possibility of making the world government my greatest enemy, I will not waver from my path. I will remain resolute and fearless in the pursuit of my objectives. Before departing, he spoke in a hushed tone, expressing his strong desire to visit a particular island. After that, he looked at the bartender. Sorry to bother you. Could you possibly tell me where I can buy a log-pose compass? Sure. If you exit the bar and walk straight ahead for a few hundred meters, you'll come across a store that sells log-pose compasses. They have a diverse selection of products available for purchase. Many thanks. Upon finishing his drink, Pride promptly headed to the recommended store to make his purchase. It didn't take Pride long to locate what he was searching for, and he stumbled upon many other intriguing items that caught his attention. Thank you very much for your purchase of our products, and enjoy your stay at Jaya, the seller said. Afterward, Pride headed out to get food supplies, knowing that his next trip would be a bit longer than usual. Pride's mind was at ease, now that he had everything necessary for his travels. He geared up for the journey, ready to depart. After boarding his boat, Pride set out to depart from the shores of Jaya. As he sailed, the island gradually receded into the distance, growing smaller and smaller with every meter he covered. A few weeks later, as his destination was outside the Grand Line, Pride's initial destination was the Reverse Mountain. Despite encountering several storms during his journey, his devil fruit ability enabled him to avoid any perilous situations with ease. At long last, Pride arrived at his destination, and he ascended via the countercurrent. From this point, he could select which of the 4 blue seas he wished to explore. For this particular journey, Pride opted for the West Blue, considering it to be his intended destination. Given that log poses were only effective in the Grand Line, he had no intention of using one during his exploration of the 4 blue seas. With that in mind, Pride took his time to navigate the route, making stops at various islands along the way. He would converse with the locals and seek their advice on the most efficient method of reaching his destination. Since there were fewer islands in the West Blue compared to the Grand Line, Pride finally reached his destination after a while. As he traveled further, Pride could discern an island in the distance, slowly coming into view. How beautiful it is! From afar, Pride observed the island's lush and vibrant landscape, with verdant hills and dense forests stretching out as far as the eye could see. The occasional tall palm tree and colorful exotic flowers provided a striking contrast against the greenery. Multiple rivers meandered across the terrain, eventually flowing into the sparkling, crystal-clear sea that shimmered under the sun's rays. The island's serene and picturesque scenery seemed to exude an air of peace and tranquility. As Pride drew nearer to the island, he couldn't help but feel a sense of awe as the giant tree towered above the forest. Its trunk was so thick that it would take several people holding hands to encircle it, and its branches extended far and wide, providing shade for a vast area. It was clear that this tree was the centerpiece of the island and held great importance to its inhabitants. So this must be the Tree of Knowledge. He had only seen it in the anime before, during the infamous Buster Call scene, but now he could appreciate its beauty and grandeur with his own eyes. The tree towered over the surrounding forest, with thick branches stretching out in every direction and a massive trunk that seemed to go on forever. Pride felt a thrill of excitement as he realized that he was about to explore an island that held such a magnificent and mysterious wonder at its heart. In the year 1480, O'Hara wasn't viewed as a threat to the world government. Instead, the island was renowned for its intellectual and scholarly pursuits, attracting those who sought knowledge and enlightenment. Indeed, O'Hara was a place of great interest to many high-ranking individuals, particularly those within the world government. This was because O'Hara was home to the world-renowned O'Hara Library, which housed countless ancient texts and scholarly works. Many government officials believed that the library held dangerous knowledge and feared that it could be used to undermine their authority. As a result, the government kept a close eye on the island, and ultimately, it would be the site of a devastating tragedy. Due to the island's well-fortified security and strong personnel, there were rarely any successful pirate attacks during this time period. A small, inconspicuous sandy beach was located near the island's harbor, which allowed people to come ashore without attracting attention. Pride pondered over the option of utilizing the sandy beach for his entry into the island. He aimed to minimize any chances of being noticed by anyone, especially any marine officials present at the harbor. Upon arriving on the island, Pride levitated his boat and concealed it in the dense bushes to avoid drawing unwanted attention. Pride let out a quiet sigh and muttered to himself, "I really should get my own ship one day." A broad smile spread across his face. "I am excited to see what O'Hara has in store for me," Pride thought, and headed off to explore the island. And with that thought, he continued his exploration of the island. As he walked through the dense forest, he marveled at the different species of plants and animals he encountered. He saw exotic birds with vibrant feathers, monkeys swinging from tree to tree, and even some small deer-like creatures that were completely new to him. Pride also noticed that the island was not only rich in flora and fauna, but also in culture and history. He came across ancient ruins and stone monuments that seemed to have been carved by a highly skilled craftsman. The symbols on them were unfamiliar to him, but he felt a deep sense of respect and awe for the people who created them. As he ventured further into the island, Pride started to notice signs of civilization. He saw small villages and settlements, and he could hear the sounds of people going about their daily lives. He made his way toward the largest settlement, where he hoped to find more information about the island and its people. As he approached the settlement, he saw a group of children playing a game of tag. They laughed and shouted as they chased each other around, and Pride couldn't help but smile at the innocence and joy they displayed. He approached them and asked if they knew anything about the island's history and culture. To his surprise, the children eagerly shared their knowledge with him. They told him about the island's rich history of scholarship and knowledge, and how people from all over the world came to O'Hara to learn and share their ideas. They also told him about the giant tree in the center of the island, which was said to be the source of all knowledge and wisdom on the island. Pride listened to the children with great interest, and he felt a growing sense of respect and admiration for the people of O'Hara. He realized that this island was truly a special place, and he was grateful to have the opportunity to explore and learn from it. With a renewed sense of purpose, he continued his journey, eager to uncover more of the island's secrets. Pride's footsteps echoed through the forest as he made his way toward the center of the island. As he walked, he noticed that the buildings around him were made of stone, and there were several large pillars scattered throughout the area. It was clear that this place had a rich history. Eventually, he arrived at the base of the giant tree he had seen from a distance. It was even more impressive up close. Its massive trunk seemed to stretch into the sky, and the branches reached out in all directions, creating a canopy that covered the area. As he looked around, Pride noticed that there were several people walking around the base of the tree. They appeared to be scholars and academics, deep in thought as they examined the tree and the surrounding area. Pride decided to approach one of them and ask for directions to the library. He was eager to learn more about the island's history and culture. "Excuse me," he said, approaching an elderly man who was examining the bark of the tree. "Can you tell me where the library is?" The man looked up and smiled warmly. "Of course, my boy. The library is just over there," he said, pointing towards a large building nearby. "Thank you," Pride said, bowing slightly. "I appreciate your help." The man nodded and returned to his examination of the tree. Pride made his way to the library, feeling a sense of excitement and anticipation. He couldn't wait to see what secrets the island held. Pride was aware that there might be marine soldiers or world government officials on the island, so he visited a shop in Jaya to purchase items for disguise. He bought a mask that covered half of his face and a hat to conceal his appearance. He had also prepared a backstory in case anyone asked him about his disguise, claiming that he had a facial scar that he did not want to reveal. So far, no one had questioned him. However, he was ready for the possibility of being discovered, but he wanted to avoid any unnecessary confrontations. He was determined to minimize any potential complications or obstacles that could arise during his exploration of O'Hara. Pride knew that beneath the Tree of Knowledge, there was a secret chamber where the scholars conducted their important research on the Void Century and other related topics. However, the library he had been directed to visit was accessible to everyone and contained general information that was available to the public. As he approached the building, he noticed a woman at the reception desk who seemed to be monitoring visitors and their length of stay. With a polite smile, she greeted Pride. "Good day." "Good day," Pride replied politely and smiled back. Pride looked down the hallway. "I assume you are here to learn more about the history of our world?" the receptionist asked, smiling. "Yes, that's right," replied Pride, pointing with his finger to the right side, where a multitude of books and people reading could be seen. "Should I just go along there?" he added politely. "Yes, exactly. Just go straight ahead." "I wish you a pleasant stay," replied the receptionist. Pride made his way into the library and was impressed by its size and grandeur. Inside, he found row after row of books and scrolls, each one containing a wealth of knowledge and information. As he browsed the shelves, Pride felt his excitement growing. He knew that he had come to the right place, and he was eager to learn everything he could about the world and its secrets. Pride reached for one of the books and read the title quietly to himself. The Red Line. He continued on his way, and also grabbed the book about the Grand Line. Although Pride already knew some things about the world of One Piece, these pieces of information were only fragmentarily stored in his memory. By reading the books in the library, he could now take the time to read everything again and better memorize the connections. He sat down on one of the empty seats. Afterward, he opened the book about the Red Line. He quietly read the following about the Red Line. The Red Line is a giant wall that bisects the world horizontally at the equator. It is said to be the only continent in the world and is located perpendicular to the Grand Line, splitting it into two halves. The Red Line is also known for its immense height, making it almost impossible to climb or cross over, which has created many unique geographic features and cultural differences on either side of the wall. "Ah, I see. The Grand Line," he murmured. Then he opened the other book that was next to him. The Grand Line is the most dangerous and adventurous sea route in the world. It is located in the center of the world and stretches from north to south. The Grand Line is divided into two halves by the Red Line. The Grand Line is known for its unpredictable weather patterns, dangerous sea creatures, and powerful pirate crews. That was already known to me. Let's see what else there is to read, thought Pride. Pride scoured the library extensively, and after reading the book about the Grand Line and the Red Line, he took many more books with him. He immersed himself in the library for several hours, savoring the abundance of knowledge contained within its walls. He eagerly devoured everything he could find about the vibrant and complex world of One Piece, as well as delving into a myriad of other fascinating and less immediately relevant topics. With each passing moment, he felt his understanding of the world expanding, and he relished the opportunity to broaden his horizons and deepen his knowledge. Unbeknownst to him, Pride had become so engrossed in his studies that the hours had slipped away and the gentle light of dusk had given way to the deepening shadows of night. It was only when he finally looked up from his studies that he realized how long he had been lost in his pursuit of knowledge. With a sense of mild surprise, he noticed that the library was now quiet, its visitors already gone. As Pride sat there, taking in the stillness of the empty library, a woman from the reception approached him. "Excuse me," the woman said softly, her voice gentle but firm. "We're closing soon, so I must ask you to leave the library within the next 5 minutes." "Understood," Pride replied, turning his attention back to the book in his hands. With the deadline looming, he hurriedly flipped through the remaining pages, determined to absorb as much knowledge as possible before his departure. As he reached the last page, he took a deep breath, his mind still reeling from all he had learned. With a sense of satisfaction, he closed the book. He put all the books he had read back on the shelves and left the library. As he made his way toward the Tree of Knowledge, he came across the familiar figure of the old man who had previously guided him to the library. "Excuse me," Pride said. However, the old man was preoccupied with something else at the moment. After a brief pause, he finally turned his attention to him. "Ah, it's you again. How may I assist you?" the old man replied. "Could you please tell me where I could find a place to stay overnight around here?" Pride asked. The old man smiled kindly. "Certainly. If you continue straight ahead for a few hundred meters, you will come across a tavern. You can stay there overnight if you wish." Pride expressed his gratitude to the elderly gentleman and proceeded in the direction that was recommended to him. It didn't take him long to reach his destination. He only needed a few minutes to arrive at the tavern. He entered the tavern and rented one of the available rooms. He paid several weeks in advance just to have some peace and quiet. Once he had entered his room, Pride set his sword aside and removed his coat. Then he lay down on the bed to rest. The bed is quite comfortable. He let out a sigh and continued to reflect. So far, I have been able to gain a lot of knowledge, even some that may seem irrelevant. However, I feel as though that's all I have accomplished. Before he knew it, he had drifted off to sleep. The next morning, Pride woke up early the next morning, had breakfast at the tavern, and set off for the library once again. Upon arriving at the library, he selected several books from the shelf and settled down to read. Pride read through one book after another, absorbing the information and committing it to his memory. He was so deeply immersed in the books that he lost track of time, and several hours passed without him even realizing it. He had just finished reading his 6th book and was starting on his 7th one. Suddenly, a voice jolted him out of his concentration. "Very interesting book you're reading," the voice said. Pride looked over and saw a girl smiling at him. He examined her inquisitively. She had striking long white hair, piercing blue eyes, and a slender yet average build. Her outfit consisted of a light blue top with dark blue edges, paired with gray pants and black shoes. A light brown belt with large buckles was fastened to her pants, and she wore a necklace around her neck. She completed her ensemble with a long light brown coat with dark brown edges. Pride recognized her immediately. Nico Alvia, he thought to himself. She should be around 11 years old at this time. I am very interested in swords. This book, The Most Powerful Swords, sounds very intriguing, don't you think so? He asked. Before Pride knew it, the girl had pulled up a chair and sat down next to him. With a broad grin, she introduced herself. Nico Alvia, that's my name. Nice to meet you. Pride. Nice to meet you too, he replied, returning her smile. Can I ask you something? Sure, go ahead. What would you like to know? Pride asked. Why do you wear a mask? She asked curiously, pointing at the mask that Pride wore over his face. Pride sighed. It was only a matter of time before someone would ask. Pride told her the same excuse he had prepared before, that he had an injury on his face, and that's why he wears the mask. Nico Alvia didn't pry any further, and simply replied with, "Oh, I'm sorry." "It's okay," Pride said with a small smile. Without missing a beat, she quickly changed the subject to the book and its fascinating contents, speaking with unstoppable enthusiasm. As she delved deeper into the topic, she seamlessly moved on to discuss other books that had piqued her interest, demonstrating a genuine passion for literature. Although she is known as Nico Robin's mother, little beyond that is known about her. She remains shrouded in mystery, with few details available to help understand her true nature. Has she always been that curious and talkative, or have these traits changed over time? She spent several hours by Pride's side, sharing a lot with him. Alvia even revealed information that he probably shouldn't know. This probably only happened because she was still very young and couldn't keep her mouth shut. Pride found it interesting to learn new information that was not documented in any books. Suddenly, Alvia rose from her seat and grasped Pride's hand tightly. "Come with me," she urged. "I need to introduce you to someone." Pride felt curious, wondering if Alvia was about to introduce him to the person he had been thinking about. Without hesitation, he followed Alvia's lead. Leaving the books still on the table, Alvia pulled Pride by the hand and led him out of the library. After a few hundred meters, Alvia tugged at Pride's arm and urged him to keep following. "Hurry, we're almost there," she giggled. After a few minutes of walking, they arrived at a house.